What are your thoughts on the Spurs season? Who do you think they should draft this year? Are there any free agents in this year's class that are worth the Spurs going after? How do you feel about that win? How do you feel about that loss? What do you think about DeJounte Murray's performance? What's your question? What's your comment? Do you want to get it heard? Do you want it heard across thousands of people? You want to type it in? You want to leave an audio message? You want to leave a video short to be put up on the channel? Well, now we're talking Spurs basketball. Head over to patreon.com/SpursTube TV to connect with SpursTube TV and get your shot and your opportunity to become involved with the channel and get your voice heard. All right, San Antonio Spurs fans, in this episode, we're going to talk about free agency. It's a little bit away. Usually it happens after the draft. You're talking about early August, late July, when the actual free agency period starts. Sometimes you hear a little bit of buzz, beforehand, but it's still a little while away. So I know it's way too early, and that's what this episode is going to be. This episode is going to be a way too early free agency big board, which means that I haven't dove into exactly what the team needs. We haven't had the draft, so we don't know what we're going to do on draft night. And, so that can really shape, in which direction free agency takes place, right? So, or what form it takes place in. But I got 5 players that I want to talk about. 5 players that I think will help this team win now and into the future. So let's get into it. This is my way too early NBA free agency big board coming up on the SpursTube Podcast. All right, so let's start off by talking about the guys that are starting caliber players right now in the NBA. The first one right off the bat is Deandre Ayton. The more I see him right now in the playoffs, the more I like. The more that I've seen him behind the scenes, kind of seeing what he's all about behind the scenes, because when you just see him play basketball, you don't get the full picture. You have to kind of know what type of teammate he is and what type of leadership qualities he has to really understand how good this guy is. This year, he averaged 17.2 points, 10 rebounds, 1.4 assists. He shot 63% from the field. He was just a monster. 74% from the free throw line, so that's huge. 36% from three. Not really sure how many attempts he took this year from the three. Let me see if I can get some totals here. Some totals. 3-point attempts this year is he shot 19. He shot 19. He shot 20 last year. So, he's putting him up. He's not afraid to let him go. But let's talk about him a little bit more and, about the Spurs. And the reason why I like Deandre Ayton so much is because I've seen what type of pick and roll player DeJounte Murray is. And, we've all kind of seen him operate it with LaMarcus Aldridge, really deferring in that pick and roll. But now you're starting to see him be aggressive, scoring the ball and really, creating a little bit more with this big guy. And I think a guy like Deandre Ayton is only going to boost what I'm all tongue-tied, what DeJounte Murray does with the basketball. This year he had great chemistry with Jakob. I think I can easily see DeAndre just taking that up another level. There's a lot of admiral, little mini David Robinson qualities that he brings to the table. Again, his leadership is on another level. His vocalness on the defensive end is impressive. It's very intellectual. He's a very smart guy. He's vocal. He's a great teammate. He understands the game. For a big guy, that's pretty refreshing. He's obviously gonna help the defensive side of the ball for the Spurs and protecting the rim, protecting the paint, and just making them an overall better defensive unit. He's gonna help the rebounding issue. He's gonna help the protecting shots at the rim issue for the Spurs. He really can be a big of the future. If you're talking about building around DeJounte, it's almost like the perfect Spurs fit to pair him with a big man like DeAndre Ayton, a guy that can do the things that he does, has the personality that he has. I mean, he was a number 1 overall pick. I wasn't really a big fan of that decision. Phoenix has always done weird things to me in the draft. Like, they drafted Jalen Smith. They could have had Devin Vassell. A lot of people don't realize that, is that Devin Vassell literally could have been taken the pick before we did by the Phoenix Suns, and they took Jalen Smith, who's not even on the roster anymore. They just do weird things, like in the draft where with Ayton, I'm thinking Luka Doncic is the clear cut, like, generational type player in this draft. And, Luka went 4th, which means Phoenix wasn't the only team to pass on him. But they passed on him early. Like, it was before the draft even happened. It was like, oh, no, they like Ayton. They like Ayton. They really like Ayton, which is weird for me because I don't know why they wouldn't commit to him the way they didn't. He's going to be a restricted free agent this summer. Believe he's scheduled to make around $30 million per year. So he's supposed to get that max extension, that huge extension that, like Luka got, or at least it'll be on the table. But he's not really your main guy. So I can see how, like, Phoenix maybe doesn't want to overpay him, because they're more like, well, Booker's our guy, Chris Paul, we're going to ride with him, and maybe Ayton's just as good as Chris Paul makes him. Maybe that's their mindset. I don't know. He was pretty good before Paul, got even better with Paul. Obviously, we know what Chris Paul does in elevating the big men that he plays with. I mean, that's his whole deal, and I feel like if we bring him to San Antonio, if we bring DeAndre Ayton to San Antonio, yes, we're bringing a number 1 pick. We're bringing that type of caliber of player, even though he's very pigeonholed over there in Phoenix. I feel like he has his role. It's like, be the best defender on the floor, protect the rim, be vocal, be a leader, and on offense, do what we need you to do on offense. And that's pretty much all he does. He's not primary. In other words, he's more secondary to their offensive machine. But I feel if he was in San Antonio, we would just capitalize on all that defensive ability that he showcased, and we would just harness that IQ that he has on that side of the floor and just take it up a notch. And you can really maybe even see him kind of getting to that defensive player of the year type caliber defense if he joins San Antonio. Yes, I think that's something that we all can maybe see. But what I think is that we can actually expand on his role offensively. We need a guy that can actually do a little bit more offensively. And, if we're running a pick and roll with him and DeJounte, it's like those, you can even say that Ayton should be above DeJounte in the pecking order on offense. So let's go to him. Let's give him the ball. Let's find him rolling to the rim. Let's throw him some lobs. Let's give him a couple hook shots. Let's give him the ball in the post. Like, let's really go to him a little bit more and showcase him and make him a priority on offense versus him just kind of being one of the tools that are on that squad. So that's what I like about DeAndre Ayton early on. I really like the fit with DeJounte Murray, obviously with anyone, but his defensive tenacity and his ability to lead the team on defense is what puts him at number 1 on my list. Number 2, the other starter caliber guy that we've been talking about already for a while is Zach Levine. Zach Levine, unlike DeAndre Ayton, is going to be unrestricted in the free agent market, which means that, whatever we offer DeAndre Ayton, if we offer him anything, the Phoenix Suns will be able to match him, keep him. Zach Levine, on the other hand, and actually all the other players on this list are unrestricted. He can go wherever he wants, and if the team matches him, whatever, I mean, the Bulls can match the offer, but doesn't mean that he has to stay there. So Zach Levine's going to be able to go. He's expected to make somewhere around $30 million, $29 million this upcoming year. So, back to back, those first 2 guys on our list are up there in the pay scale. The Spurs, last time the Spurs paid 2 guys like that, it was LaMarcus and DeMar, both getting $26 million each, right? So that's the last time we paid 2 guys to really carry that load. Zach Levine, I love the camaraderie that he would bring to the Spurs with DeJounte Murray, both being from Seattle. They're homies. You can tell that they're close on Twitter. They're always tweeting at each other. They're both New Balance guys. They have that bond from being from the same place. I love that. I love the fact that he's a scorer first, and we actually can make him a number one option. I think he's that good. And I think if we challenged him to do that, and if Pop built something around that idea, that we would only expand on his ability to score. You know how we expanded on DeMar's ability to facilitate? He was already kind of like a polished NBA scorer. I mean, DeMar DeRozan was an all-star already, all that stuff. And I feel like, Zach coming in, it's a different story. We can actually utilize his scoring to help this team win basketball games. Another thing that I really like about the idea of Zach Levine is actually requiring him to play a lot of defense. I think that's something that the Spurs and Coach Pop would do is demand that out of him. He showed in the Olympics where he really was an X factor for that USA team this past summer in Tokyo. He showed there that he can really D up. He took Pop's coaching well. He was able to take another leap forward, I think, in his game and his confidence. So that's pretty awesome. The All-Star thing, and him and DJ being on the All-Star team this year was awesome. So I just really like the fact that they can play with a little extra grit and a little extra pride. Like if they're putting on not just for the Spurs and not just for San Antonio, but also for Seattle and Seattle basketball and all that stuff. Like I just feel like that would translate over to the court well, and I think that would translate over to wins. So and we would have 2 gold medalists on the team at that point too, with him and Keldon Johnson. Here's another thing though about Zach and the conversation that people bring up, and is does that mean that Devin Vassell has to go to the bench, or Keldon Johnson has to go to the bench? And, the answer is no. It really doesn't, because really all you have to do is swap Zach Levine out for Doug McDermott. Sit Doug McDermott. Zach Levine this past season with Chicago played at the small forward position. So, I mean, we can slide Keldon to the power forward, which is where he was all for the past 2 seasons. He's been there at the power forward position. I've kind of been on the boat of, that not being a good idea, like put Keldon at the 3, get bigger at the 4, and, whatever happens at the 5 is all good. You're set nice and tall, nice and big and athletic to compete, to defend longer, to, contest shots better, right? With all that. But if the Spurs are really committed, like they've been extra committed to this small ball mentality. I mean, even having like Keita Bates-Diop at the 5 sometimes, you know what I mean? Like it was Jakob and what? And that's it. We would never really go big or double big. And so I'm saying we committed to the small ball stuff. So there's room for a lineup like DeJounte, Devin Vassell, Zach Levine, Keldon Johnson, Jakob Poeltl, or in this case scenario, DeAndre Ayton, can that be a big 3 for the Spurs to compete with the rest of the Western Conference? DeJounte Murray, Zach Levine, DeAndre Ayton. Now, that's like a perfect world, my number 1 wish list scenario for this offseason, that if the Spurs are going into this year thinking like, you know what, we're going to commit to this free agent class. We think these are our guys. We think that DeAndre Ayton and Zach Levine, with DeJounte Murray at the point, and the surrounding cast that we're going to put around them of complementary pieces, like a great 3-and-D player like Devin Vassell, a grit and grind guy like Keldon Johnson, a young and budding superstar that might just swing your upside in Josh Primo, and 3 future first-round picks this year. I mean, I don't know how that... I don't think it can work out, financially that way, but like, let's just say like that is the vision. I'm all behind that vision, building around those 3 guys. It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense on paper. So, that's just, this is the wish list episode. This is the way too early wish list. Deandre Ayton and Zach Levine are on the top of my top 5. When we get right back, we're going to get into the third guy on the board. Okay, this one's kind of out of nowhere, and I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, I've done all my research and I've been a big fan of this player for so long and I'm all about what he does and he's a perfect Spur and all that. No, none of it. TJ Warren, I'm still just kind of super impressed from what he did in the bubble a few years ago now. He went off and really showed this, like, whoa, TJ Warren actually can drop like 50 points in a game, 40 points in a game. Like, what? Like, no way. It's like, yeah, he actually can. Now, he didn't play this year, due to injury. But on his career, he's averaging 15 points a game. He's a double-digit scorer, anywhere between 15 to 21, 22 points a game. So he can do it. He's done it for multiple seasons in his career now. So I like the idea of having a guy that's coming off injury, that has that upside that can just blow up. He can just really be a guy that drops 20 a game for you and just, low key just maybe is one of the better players on your team. TJ Warren has been with the Pacers for the past few years. And, so there hasn't been much of him since the bubble, and he's been dealing with injuries. But what a flash in the pan that was. It was spectacular. Like, honestly, like, go back and Google TJ Warren bubble highlights, and you're like, dang, who is this guy? Like, this guy is like Kawhi Leonard. Who is this dude? He's 6'8", 220. He's a small forward, so it's kind of that similar situation with Zach Levine, where it's like, okay, we'll slide KJ at the power forward, let him stay there, and then you insert this guy. 4 rebounds a game on his career. Nothing too impressive there, but he does shoot 50% from the field. On his career, he's only 35 from the 3-point line. But there was something special brewing about this guy in the bubble, right? So, he would be a potential, starter. I don't know if he's willing to come off the bench. I don't know where he is in his rehab process, but obviously he can score. You're concerned about the injuries a little bit, but maybe he has like a little bit of a redemption in him, and it would be just a kind of cool fit to bring him to San Antonio to kind of do the whole kind of Zach Collins treatment and rehab and kind of come into the season and we'll ease him in and develop him and let him kind of grow and let him help the team kind of be a veteran on the team. That's kind of what I like. I don't know. So that's number 3 on my list, TJ Warren. Number 4, Kyle Anderson. Come home, Kyle. Slow-mo. We're ready. We're sorry we ever let you go. I think if you're talking to Spurs fans, we still look at you and just see you in a Spurs jersey. Come home, bro. Come home and just worry about D'ing up. Lead by example. Be a guy that can talk and share his experience to our young players now that he has, not just with the Spurs, but with Memphis, another winning organization. And he helped that young team in that crucial period of time where they were coming up, kind of where we're at now, where Ja was younger, his first year and all that. I remember that year, it was Tony Parker retirement night, and they came into our house and beat us. And honestly, we haven't been able to beat them really ever since that night. When Tony Parker, man, poor guy, it was supposed to be like an easy game. All right, Memphis, they're a young team. All right, we had DeMar DeRozan, all that stuff. Okay, great. And they came in and whooped us. And from then on, it's been all she wrote. And Kyle Anderson was on the floor of that game. And well, I'm just really thinking he can bring a size advantage to a position for us right now. He can really calm these young guys down, really get them seeing the game with a more experienced lens. He just makes kind of those right plays. He's still a great defender. He can shoot well. He can score well. He's a great teammate. And if he can add some depth, obviously, like coming off the bench would be where I see him helping the squad. And, if he can do that for us, and That would be great. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. I think he's somewhere around 14-15 million this offseason. So we'll see what we can do. Maybe a slow-mo return to San Antonio's in play. We'll find out. We have the money for it, but just depends on what we're going to do with this money. What we're going to do with our draft picks. Everything gets decided on all that, man. So the first, lottery this month in a few weeks. Going back to TJ Warren though, real quick, 19 million, I think is what he's expected to make next season. That's a lot coming to a guy, that's been injured the whole year previous, and in San Antonio, the next highest paid guy is like 18 or 17 million, right? So, no, I just don't see that TJ Warren thing happening financially at 19 million, but if he wants to come to San Antonio for less, maybe that would work. I don't know. Kyle Anderson though, 15 million. I don't mind it. 12 maybe. 12. Help us out, Kyle. Help us out, Slow-Mo. Okay, last person on my way too early list. It's a short board, to be honest. This free agent class isn't the best class. It's really top heavy, and even the guys at the top you don't really want any part of. Guys like James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and it's like, you know what? No, I think not, right? So there's some talent on this on the master list, right? The whole 2020 free agent list. But talking about helping this team, the last guy that I picked out is Chris Boucher from Toronto. I don't know if you guys know who I'm talking about, but when you go back and you think about that Toronto game, there's that really lanky looking guy. He's super tall, super skinny. Boucher is Boucher, and he is like a small forward, power forward, more of a power forward, I would say. But he just brings length and versatility because he can kind of do it all. He's like a little mini version of like a Kevin Durant, right? Like but he can't nearly do it on a level that Kevin can, right? Is what I've seen is like, he can shoot the three, he can shoot off the dribble for his height and for his length. It's just kind of crazy. And he can be aggressive at the rim. And he's had some good games against us. I'll tell you that. I mean, from what I saw in the playoffs, he played a little bit here and there, but during the regular season, he's very involved with that team. And, that Toronto always picks up good guys. Coming from Toronto, we know that he's going to be developed. We know he's going to be a good character guy. We know that he's going to be one of those sleeper dudes that no one really picked up on earlier on in his career. And, it's very Spursy. He's a very Spursy pick. I think he's from Canada, if I'm not mistaken. So Chris Boucher, $13 million, unrestricted free agent. I don't know if we'd, $10 million, 3 years, $10 million, 30 million for 3 years, something like that, with like a player option at the end or a team option or something going on there at the end of his contract. That's what I would like. So, my board from top down goes DeAndre Ayton, Zach Levine. I would totally get behind them two coming to San Antonio, linking up with DeJounte, and that being the big three of the future, right? And then we have our supporting cast guys of Vassell, a really good supporting cast, right? Of Vassell, Primo, and Keldon, really, so, and then whatever we do at the draft this year. So we'll see. Then you got TJ Warden. I feel like I'm saying Warden like from a prison, but it's Warren. TJ Warren. It's kind of like that sleeper pickup. Like if it just kind of came out from a Woj bomb somewhere, like Spurs signed TJ Warren. It's like, oh, okay. It's like a guy that didn't play at all last season, but was really good like 2-3 years ago. Who's maybe going to try to work his way back to being really good. And you never know. He actually might be really good. We'll see. Yeah, that sounds like a Spurs thing to do, right? That's what I'm saying. I don't know. It kind of makes sense in a way. I don't know. Kyle Anderson, the return of Slow-Mo to San Antonio, and Chris Boucher. That's my full list. That's my full list right now. My top 5 free agents that I would like to see come to San Antonio this offseason. Just to remind you guys to check out the YouTube channel. We got a new weekly update video coming this weekend. On Saturday, we're talking the high points of San Antonio Spurs news out there. So make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you have not. Rate this podcast down below. It's good to be with you guys. The schedule is kind of rolling out to be a Thursday podcast, Saturday weekly update on YouTube. I'm trying to do a film room now every once in a while. So make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. A lot of fun stuff going on over there. All right, SpursTubeTV.com, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. This has been the SpursTube Podcast. I'm Rob Trejo Jr. Adios.